First up, gentlemen, minimize distractions. Turn off the notifications on your phone. Turn your phone on to silent. In fact, turn it on airplane mode so you don't have any incoming calls. Your dog, let him out. Your kids, tie him up.
What?
Whatever it takes, guys, to get the job done. Just kidding. I don't tie up my kids, but maybe I've accidentally locked them down in the basement.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The point is, you want to have time to get into flow. You need about 5 to 10 minutes when you start a project to really get into the groove. And once you hit that flow, that's when the magic happens. So you want to be able to have at least 25 minutes, 45 minutes of undisturbed, focused time that you can get the job done and make things happen. The next tip to working effectively from home, have a dedicated space. If you've got an empty room that you can turn into an office, congratulations. This is one of the best things that you can do to separate your home from your work. But I know most of us aren't going to have too much space. So you're going to have to look around, get creative. I know people that have taken their laundry room, okay? That's their work room during the day. I know people that actually go out and hide in their car. Yes, away from their family, just sit in the car and work there because it's peaceful and it's quiet. Find what works for you. Even a bathroom. Yes, I've used bathrooms as places where I do phone calls because, hey, they're pretty soundproof and I was able just to simply go in there and not be disturbed. The next way to be effective when working from home, focus on the 4% that's going to give you the 64% return. What am I talking about here? The deep Pareto principle. So you've probably heard of the Pareto principle. Focus on the 20% that gives you the 80%. But within that, there is another 20% of that 20%. The 4%, which gives you the 64% return. At the beginning of your day, when you've got the most amount of energy, you want to eat the frog. Do the thing that is going to yield you the big return on investment. The thing, yeah, you're procrastinating. Maybe you don't want to do it. Have someone help hold you accountable. Another quick point here. If you've got an accountability partner, you can say, hey, this is what I need to get done, and they can help hold you accountable. Huge win to start your day. Now let's talk about your calendar. Schedule everything. Seriously, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, when you're relaxing, when you're eating meals, when you're working, and what you're working on. The more detail you go into your schedule, the more you go into that planning, the more likely you are to follow through. Now, reality, be kind to yourself because you're going to schedule things out and something is going to hijack your day. It happens all the time to even the best of us. But here's the thing. If you can just accomplish 25% of what you schedule, especially when you put the most important things at the beginning, guys, that's a victory. That's a win. And I want to stress on that point, be kind to yourself because you're going to have big ambitions, especially if you're new to working from home. You have all these ideas, all these things you think you can get done, especially when you used to work in an office, you're used to be able to go in and just get the job done. But things are going to pop up at home, things that you can't predict, things you just unexpected, especially if you've got kids, if you've got a family around, something is going to happen. It's going to need your attention. It's going to throw you off. And then there are going to be other days that you're incredibly productive. My point is, be kind, forgive yourself when you have those days that just don't go your way. Next, identify your most productive time and protect it. There's about a 2 to 3 window hour in a day in which you are in the zone, which you can make things happen. And then the rest of the day, yeah, not so much. Here's the thing. For most of us, it's in the morning, about 2 to 3 hours after we wake up, we hit that zone, we hit that stride, and we can make magic happen. Some of you guys are night owls, maybe a little bit, maybe midday. The point is, find that, identify it, and protect that time. And make sure you've got the most important things you need to get done scheduled then. Next up, exercise. Within 30 minutes of waking up, you want to start getting the blood flowing. What are we talking about here? It can be something as simple as yoga, but maybe you want to go out for a walk, you want to go for a run on the treadmill, you want to go down and do 100 burpees. Whatever it may be, find a way to get the blood flowing. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have multiple times during the day when you're exercising. I highly recommend that you do this and you break it up. Why? Because you're going to be sitting a lot. You're going to be in a closed, confined area, and you want to change up your routine. So guys, find what works for you, but don't forget that exercise is one of the best things you can do to stay active, to stay mobile, and to feel great throughout the day. Now, if you take nothing else from this video, take this one tip. Start your day early and you're going to be a lot more effective. Now, I know some of you guys are night owls, are going to disagree, but I find that by starting the day incredibly early, boom, no one else is awake, especially not kids, no boss sending you crazy emails, you need to get this done. It is just quiet. You can sit and think. You can have coffee. You can accomplish in 1 hour something with no one disturbing you. Don't even have to turn your phone off. No one's calling you at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, and boom, you can make magic happen. Now, with that, don't be afraid to end the day early. I know a lot of people that start their day early and they end their day late. that is a recipe for disaster, especially over the long haul. We were not made to work 12 to 14 hours a day with this modern, especially on computers and all this other stuff. That is going to burn you out within a matter of months. And all of a sudden you're going to hate life. How about you do yourself a favor, work hard early. In fact, don't really focus on the hours. Focus on what you're able to accomplish, what you're able to get done, and end your day at 3 p.m., at 4 p.m., and set time aside, again, in your calendar to relax, to be able to just let steam off, to be able to shut down that computer. Another point, highly recommend, shut the computer, turn it off, and not only that, pack it away. Why do you want to do this? Because you don't want to be tempted. A lot of people, when they're working from home, they leave that computer on and they walk past it. It's 7 p.m. Oh, I see I've gotten some emails. Or they leave their phone on and they're constantly getting all these other emails coming to their phone, and boom, all of a sudden they're being drawn back into work. Now, this next point, I know it's not possible for everybody, but I would look to separate your work from your personal phone. I know some of you guys feel you have to be attached to your phone and you've got your work emails coming to your phone. Highly recommend you separate it out. I know for me, I have a personal email and a work email. I don't have a work phone, but I do have set times and I don't install a lot of apps on my phone. Nothing really that has to do with work, because I want to maintain that separation. And this is more important when you're working from home, because it is so easy to be overwhelmed, so easy to fall into the trap of never turning it off. And hitting back on that schedule, again, let me remind you, schedule time to eat. Because if you don't schedule time for meals, you're going to find you're going to get into that zone. You're going to get busy with work. Something's going to pop up and you're going to work right through a meal. Guess what, guys? When you're not feeding yourself, all of a sudden your energy is going to drop. It's going to change your mood and you're not going to be as effective. Even though you're working, you're not really getting things done. Take care of your body. Take care of yourself. Now let's talk about setting realistic goals. So if you're new to working from home, you were working at the office and you were able to get things done. You had a set routine and you had just, I could get this done, this done, this done. When you bring that right over to working from home, guys, you're most likely going to be disappointed because there's all of these distractions, all of these problems, all these issues that you don't see when you first start to work from home. All of a sudden your internet's going to go out, or all of a sudden, your dog's going to get loose and you're going to have to go chase after there are these things that you can't predict. So again, be kind to yourself and don't be afraid to say, okay, I had these as my initial goals, but I've got to go back and change them up a bit. Once you start to develop the routine, once you start to learn how it is and you develop your routine from working from home, you can get your effectiveness up. But initially, understand you're going to have to work on those goals and make sure they're realistic. Now let's talk about overcommunicating and deadlines. So when you work in an office, there are little cues that you don't pick up on. Body language, things that other people imply to each other, things that we see, things that we don't necessarily say. When you're working from home, overcommunication is key, because you thought that they understood that this was urgent, that this needed to be done today. And then the COB, nothing has come your way. You're wondering what the heck is going on. That person didn't understand. And that's why you've got to over communicate and be very, very clear on deadlines. So many problems arise when you're working with somebody and they don't get the gravity of the situation, that it needs to be done today. Or, oh, I didn't even see the email. Because just like you, they're working now from home most likely. They are overwhelmed with the number of emails coming in. And even though you had that deadline right there, you didn't over communicate. You didn't verify they saw it and they glanced over it, but they didn't pick up on it. Now let's talk about the myth of multitasking. I used to believe this, that I could do multiple things at the same time. No, you're not capable of. What you're going to do is a lot of things and you're going to do them poorly. Instead of trying to multitask, do less, but do it better. This is what's valuable when you're able to actually to focus in on one thing and like a laser, burn and cut right through it and make it happen and do it to a level that is, wow, that was a great job. That's pretty much perfect. We don't need to go back and redo this, because if you are a multitasker and if you think you're going to be able to do this with everything going on, you are going to fall on your face. If you're multitasking, you're doing a lot of things, but you're going to do them poorly. And speaking of multitasking, let's talk about specifically switching costs. So whenever you go from one task to another task, there's a time period between this in which you have to get up to speed, in which your mind has to reset. And this is why multitasking is so bad, because when you go from point to point, there is that switching cost. And basically you're running at very low efficiency. The best way to do this is when you're laying out things, again, to prioritize the most important things at the top, but to make sure that you don't go on to another event until you've actually seen the one through to completion. Don't say, oh, well, I'm almost done. I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, and then I'll come back to that. Because if you're 80% done here, then you go work on this other project, you come back later in the week, you're going to find that you got to get up to speed on it again. So really, you've dropped down to 50 or 60% of where you were. You see, you've got to spend time catching back up, and then you're going to be able to finish it. Don't fall into the trap of switching costs. Make sure you stay focused. Now, I know a lot of you guys are thinking, Antonio, I can't stay focused. I'm all over the place. Okay, here's a quick hack for you. Use a timer. I love using a kitchen timer. Set it for 25 minutes. You can stay focused on 25 minutes. In fact, try to see how much you can get done in that 25 minutes. What you're going to find is that this is gamifying. And all of a sudden, yeah, you're trying to get done as much as you can. Now, on the flip side of that 25 minutes of focused work, I give myself 5 minutes to just simply take a break, to do whatever I want, to go to the bathroom, to drink some water, to walk around, to simply, I don't know, jump up, do some pull-ups. Maybe I simply want to watch cat videos on YouTube. Point being is give yourself time to let off steam. And yes, I know I said multitasking is the devil, but there are instances when you can actually do multiple things at the same time, especially when one of them doesn't require any real thinking. So you got to get the dishes done. You got to clean the living room. Guys, this is a great time to be listening to your favorite audiobook, to be able to listen to your favorite tunes, to jam out. And I do think having that right there available makes it a lot more enjoyable to get things done. Maybe you just have an automated thing you got to get done. You got to be sending out these emails. Why not have just some great playlists going in the background? I know for me, I love Hans Zimmer. I'll turn on my 1980s, 1990s songs. It's just a great way to be able just to get things going. Now, audiobooks do require a bit more of my bandwidth. So if I'm doing dishes, if I'm cleaning, that's when I'll listen to that. And this next tip seems obvious, but make sure to allot about 5% of your time for cleaning and organization. Because yeah, you used to go to the office and you're home, you came home, it was clean. Here's the thing, if you're home all day, if other people are home all day, messes are going to pile up. So you need to give yourself margin. And this is the next thing I want to talk about. Margin is where you expect something to go off or something not to go as planned. And so you give yourself that room to be able to deal with it. And I know for me, about 5% of my day, even though my kids are pretty good and they clean up after themselves, I still need to go through and tell them to do this, tell them to do that, jump in there and do it myself. So give yourself time to clean up and organize. And speaking of time, let's talk about how long you should work. I think that when you're working from home, you should actually be working less. Why? Because you can be deadly effective. You can actually stay very focused. But if you think that consistently you're going to be able to work 8 solid hours a day, you're probably fooling yourself, because at work, you probably don't work that. You've got a lot of time that you do this, you do that, hanging out at the water cooler, seeing your friends, going into meetings, transitioning from point to point to point. It's very difficult to stay focused like a laser for more than, I think, 6 hours a day. So if you're working from home and you're working 7 hours a day, great. I don't think you should be working more. And in fact, you want to talk to your boss, you want to talk to your peers about, instead of measuring time, measure output. Measure what you're able to accomplish. Set up KPIs, and that should be the measurement. Because if you're able to zip through things and do an incredible amount in a period of about 4 to 5 hours, who cares really how long you worked? It's look at what you were able to get done. And then again, you have time to be able to set off, to be able to relax, to be able to rebuild your energy. Next up, let's talk email. Email is one of the lifeblood forms of communication when you're working from home, but it can be messed up. You can abuse it. One of the first things I would recommend is, if you just are new to starting to work from home, make sure that your work email works and that you're able to access it. And if you don't have a work email, if you're using a personal email for both work and personal, you want to separate that out, because you want to separate your personal life from your work life as best you can. Otherwise, you will be overwhelmed. You don't want to, be scared to check your own personal email because you don't know what work your boss is sending you. So make sure you get that separation. Now let's talk about when you're sending emails to a lot of other people. These could be people who are used to actually being in meetings. So I'm in a meeting with these 6 other people. I'm going to send them all an email and tell them what needs to get done. Here's the thing, is when you email 6 people, nobody reads the email, nobody hears the email, nobody acts on it, because you weren't clear about who it was to. And you've got to be ultra specific in that email what Mike needs to do, what Sarah needs to do, what Jim needs to do. Detail it out. Again, put deadlines in there, and don't just CC people. to CC people. Don't we all hate that? Whenever you get caught into an email, you're wondering, why in the world is somebody letting me know? Usually because they're wanting to cover their own butt. Here's the thing, is take responsibility and only CC somebody if they need to. And if someone's seeing you and you don't need it, then actually I would email them back and say, hey, take me off this and only email me when it's necessary. Next up, let's talk about the power of two. So if you're working from home, most likely you have a laptop, maybe even a small laptop. Look to upgrade it with another screen, or maybe even find a way to go to a desktop. I love double screens, especially large screens, where I can see things, I can do quick comparisons, it's easier to read. I just have all of my work in front of me. Next up on the power of twos, have two browsers that you use, especially if you're on social media, if you're doing a lot of online work, because oftentimes you want to separate very clearly your personal from your professional. And sometimes I thought I've logged in, I'm logged into my personal account. I'm actually logged into my business account, and I go in and I save things. I upload a video onto YouTube. Yeah, I don't want to upload a video of my kids and it pop up on this channel. So you want to make sure you've got that separation. One of the best ways to do it, instead of logging in and out of accounts, is to simply have two different browsers that don't speak to each other, and therefore you're able to maintain the separation. Next, if your business depends on it, you need to have a backup, preferably multiple backups. I know for me, I've got tons of cameras because when I first got started filming, one of my cameras went out and guess what? I didn't have a backup, so I wasn't able to film video. If you depend on your computer to be able to access your company, then have a backup. I know I've got not only a backup computer, I've also got an iPad that I keep handy. I've got the right software installed on all of those. I've gone through and tested them because yes, I've actually started up my computer, all of a sudden it's resetting itself and I've got to quickly jump on my backup so that I'm not late for the meeting. Understand that having a backup isn't really a nice thing to have. It's an essential thing to have. Otherwise, you're running your business, you're doing your work, and you're really taking a high risk there. Now let's talk about meetings. I know a lot of you guys right now are rolling your eyes. Oh, I don't even want to talk about meetings. That's the problem, is most meetings suck. So the first rule to running an effective meeting is to plan for the meeting. Don't just show up. If you are leading the meeting, and someone always needs to lead the meeting, you need to make sure we've got an agenda. Not that you're going to follow the agenda, but you've thought through what should happen. You know the story. The next tip to running an effective meeting, make sure there's a point. There's a bit of confrontation that you are going to push on somebody else. Because doesn't that make for a great story, a great movie, when you've got a hero and you've got a villain? I'm not saying make somebody a villain, but I am saying, hey, you need to have a meeting for a purpose, for a reason. Somebody's got an opinion that's different than yours. You've got your viewpoint and you guys are going to meet. That makes for interesting watching, right? Next up, keep the meetings short and always start them on time. If somebody's habitually late, guess what? They are going to miss the meeting and it's on them to be able to catch up. Just hit the record button, but eventually they'll pick it up or you're going to have to let them go. And when keeping them short, a lot of people schedule an hour for a meeting that could actually have been done in 15 minutes. And by the way, to make that happen, at the very beginning of the meeting, make sure to state this meeting will only be 15 minutes long and to set a timer. And don't be afraid to be a sergeant at arms. You know what that is? A sergeant at arms is someone that basically ensures that everything runs on time. You should appoint that person in a meeting, especially if you've got a couple blowhards. You know what I'm talking about? These are people that keep talking and talking and they suck the life out of the meeting, and they should really be taking this offline. And speaking of taking things offline, don't be afraid to tell people to take things offline. That's when it's very specific, maybe just to 2 or 3 people who are in this meeting with 10 other people and they're holding you all captive because they're going deep on something that honestly they should have a side meeting about. And kill side meetings, because what I mean by that is they should go off and start another meeting, not have a meeting within a meeting. Isn't that, I mean, that bothers everybody whenever you are having a discussion and people are in the chat talking about something totally different. Make sure to cut that, to nip it in the bud. Now, when it comes to meetings, I do like having them at a set time, set place, regularly. That way people know there's no surprises and people are able to make it consistently and have it in their schedule. Oh, and try to keep meetings later in the day so you can stay focused on your most important things first, and the meeting you can go to, yeah, with a little bit less energy, but enough to still get the job done. And let's not forget about sprints. Sprints are a very special type of meeting. They come out of the engineering software world, and the idea is you've got everyone you need to complete a project in the same room working on it at the same time. Now, sometimes people maybe, they just don't have anything to do, but you don't let them go away. Why do you keep them there? Because Oh, I'll need you in 15 minutes. I'll need you in 20 minutes. So just stay on the line. You can be working on something else, answering emails. Go ahead and mute yourself. But the big thing is, well, you're not going to have to hunt down that person. You're not going to have to send an email and find out that, oh, they went out to do errands and they'll be back tomorrow. Because it's that delay in all those different steps, which end up a project that should be done in 2 hours, ends up taking 2 weeks. So run sprints to get things done incredibly effective. Next up, let's talk about your work wife, your remote buddy, the person that you can shoot the shit with, that you can let off steam with, that you can basically hang out at the water cooler with. When you work at the office, this naturally happens. You find that guy over in the engineering department that just understands you, just listens to you when you want to vent about how much this sucks with what you're going through over in marketing. This won't naturally happen though when you work from home. So you've got to maintain those relationships if you had them, or you've got to find somebody new, a peer, someone that you can call. My work wife, Erin Marino. Ryan Masters, Eric Vanderholtz. These are the people I just call up if I want to shoot the shit with. Raphael Schneider, I just called him the other day and we talk back and forth about what's going on in the industry. Many people view us as competitors, but here's the deal, it's like we're friends and you need to find those peers, those people that you can just simply talk with and they're not going to judge you because they get it. Leverage the power of recording your screen. So I can't type to save my life. I record my screen and I tell people what I love being able to show them, and it is just so efficient and effective. What I recommend, Loom or Snagit. Now, with all that talk about meetings, I didn't talk about the software that we use. We use Zoom here at Real Men Real Style. I love this software. I do pay for the premium version. And what I love about this is that I can actually see the person in the video. Why I do this is because I know that they're actually there. They're paying attention to the meeting. And it almost I feel a deeper connection when I can see somebody. And sometimes you can see that they're tired, that they're maybe having a tough day. So it allows you to be able to engage better and to be able to ask better questions. Oh, and another reason I love this software, I can hit record. So if I'm going to be doing some training, if it's an important meeting and someone's not able to be there, we can simply record it up on the cloud, or I can record it right to my computer. Point being is I'm able to save that information, because one of the worst things you want to do is simply do one-on-one training. I know it sounds really nice, sounds like really personal, but whenever you're able to do group training, think about that. You are amplifying yourself. And oftentimes you're trying to save your own time. You're trying to be more efficient and effective, because sometimes you're able to give a great presentations, other times not so much. So if you can record it and share it in the same way I put these videos out and they reach millions of people, think about how you can do that within your own company. Now, this should go without saying, but make sure all of this software that you start to use when you're working from home, you practice using. You log in early if you've never used it before, because you don't want to be that person showing up 5 to 10 minutes late because you couldn't figure out the software. Make sure also that you know how to screen share. Again, that you don't have something on your screen that you wouldn't want other people to see. I've actually had that in meetings where all of a sudden, wow, that's what you do with your free time. That's very interesting. Hopefully my kids are not seeing this. Or you've actually had people, and it hasn't happened to me, but you hear the stories of people don't know their camera's on, and all of a sudden, their spouse walks behind them naked. So pay attention to these things and make sure to practice before you use it. Now, what about furniture? What about your setup? I think it matters a lot. So if you could actually set up where you're going to be working in a nice part of the house, that is a plus. I love it when you're able to look out a window, you're able to have the natural light on you. And by the way, if you're filming, if you're doing any type of video conferencing, that natural light does a great job actually lighting up your face. But let's talk about furniture. Ball chairs, absolutely love them. I find that they just provide that little bit of instability, which keeps you on your toes and really, does a lot of good for your lower back if you've got back issues. And even better, standing desks, not spending all that time sitting. I do talk about that 25-5 rule where you work for 25 minutes, you take 5 minutes and you take a break. I recommend in that 5 minutes, you stretch, you walk around. But if you're at a standing desk, it's going to make the day a lot easier. I've got 2 of them that are adjustable, but it is something, maybe you don't have the ability to get a standing desk. Don't be afraid to get creative. Maybe stack up books, find a way to make it happen. Next up, let's talk about your clothing. Now, come on, we're a style channel. I do recommend that you get dressed for work, that you shower, that you put on one of your favorite fragrances, that you put on a great looking watch, and you get dressed appropriately for work. Even if you're going nowhere, you're not leaving your house that day. Why not wear your pajamas? Come on, they're comfortable. Here's the thing, is when you put on your game suit, you're there to make things happen. Put yourself in a state of mind by maybe throwing on a sports jacket, putting on a nice collared shirt, putting the clothing that you would normally wear when you go to work, or maybe even elevate it a bit, because it's all about mindset. It's all about being there at work and being effective and getting things done. And then, take the clothing off, change out of it so that you can then relax. All right, so I know I missed a lot of things. Let me know what I missed down in the comments and what video to watch next. How about your routine? I didn't talk about it, but it's incredibly important that you've got a routine. I talk about why in this video.